Elara lived in a world spun from moonlight and quiet contemplation, a world she carefully crafted for others, one whispered word at a time. Her shop, the Whispering Quill, was a haven nestled on a cobblestone lane in Havenwood, a town that seemed perpetually bathed in the soft glow of twilight. Inside, the air was a gentle blend of old paper, lavender, and the faint, sweet scent of chamomile tea. Shelves lined with leather-bound journals and hand-pressed botanical prints curved around cozy armchairs upholstered in deep forest greens and muted blues. A low melodic hum often emanated from the back room, where Elara's recording studio transformed her carefully woven narratives into bespoke auditory journeys. She wasn't a conventional author, not in the sense of publishing grand epics or thrilling mysteries. Elara crafted whispers, personalized bedtime stories designed to soothe, to inspire dreams, to mend the fraying edges of weary souls. Each whisper was a unique narrative, spun from the threads of a client's own life, their unspoken desires, their deepest comforts. She would interview them, listen intently to the cadence of their voices, the nuances of their expressions, until she could discern the particular story their heart longed to hear as they drifted into sleep. Her clients came from all walks of life. A stressed CEO needing a tale of a peaceful mountain retreat, a grieving widow finding solace in a story about a garden blooming eternally, a child wrestling with night terrors, soothed by the adventures of a brave, tiny firefly. Elara approached each request with the delicate precision of a watchmaker and the empathetic heart of a poet. For her, a story was more than words. It was a sanctuary, a lullaby, a gentle hand guiding one home. Tonight, as the last rays of a golden autumn sun slanted through the arched window, painting warm stripes across the polished oak floor, Elara sat at her antique desk, a cup of steaming jasmine tea warming her hands. She was reviewing her notes for her next client, a new referral who had been particularly terse in his initial email. Liam Thorne, an architect, known for his sleek, minimalist designs that graced city skylines. His request, forwarded by a mutual acquaintance, had been startlingly direct. "I need to sleep. I've tried everything. Dr. Albright suggested you." No mention of stories, dreams, or comfort. Just sleep. Elara smiled faintly. This was often how they started, skeptical, pragmatic individuals who viewed her service as a last resort. But she knew that beneath the layers of practicality, everyone yearned for a little magic, a little wonder, especially when the world grew too loud. Liam Thorne's appointment was tomorrow afternoon. She imagined him as impeccably dressed, probably impatient, perhaps even a little stern. She pictured sharp angles and precise movements, a stark contrast to the soft curves and gentle rhythms of her own existence. The thought intrigued her. What kind of whisper would such a man need? The next day, the bell above the Whispering Quill's door chimed with a crispness that bespoke purpose, not gentle meandering. Elara, who had been arranging a fresh bouquet of hydrangeas, turned with a graceful composure that belied the flutter in her chest. He was exactly as she'd envisioned, and yet profoundly different. Liam Thorne was indeed impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that spoke of understated luxury, his dark hair neatly combed, his jawline strong and defined. But his eyes, a startling shade of hazel, held a weariness that softened the sharp edges of his formidable presence. He wasn't stern exactly, but carried an air of quiet tension, like a tightly wound spring. "Miss Vance?" His voice was deep, resonant, and carried a low rumble that vibrated through the quiet shop. "Mr. Thorne," Elara replied, her voice, by contrast, a soft melody. She gestured towards a plush armchair by the fireplace, where a low burning fire cast dancing shadows. "Please, make yourself comfortable." He hesitated for a fraction of a second, his gaze sweeping over the eclectic, cozy space before he settled into the chair, though not quite eye-comfortable. He sat upright, his hands resting on his knees. Elara took the armchair opposite him, a small knowing smile playing on her lip. "Thank you for coming. Dr. Albright speaks highly of you." He offered a curt nod. "He suggested your services, said you might be able to help with my insomnia." He didn't sound convinced. "I craft personalized bedtime stories," Elara explained gently, picking up a smooth, river-polished stone from the small table beside her. She often used it as a grounding tool during her interviews. I call them whispers. They're designed to calm the mind, to invite peaceful sleep. Liam's brows furrowed, a faint line appearing between them. Stories? I'm not a child, Ms. Vance. I need something effective, not fanciful. Fanciful can be very effective, Mr. Thorne, Alara countered softly, her gaze steady. Think of it not as a children's tale, but as a guided meditation, a narrative journey tailored precisely to your subconscious needs. It's about finding the pathway to rest that your conscious mind has perhaps forgotten. He shifted, a faint sigh escaping him. Look, I appreciate the unique approach, but my mind doesn't forget things. It races, constantly. Details, deadlines, structural integrity, material stresses, client expectations. It doesn't switch off. And that's precisely what a whisper aims to do, Alara said. To gently guide your mind away from those demanding thoughts, to a place of safety and quiet, to create a space where your imagination can roam freely but peacefully. She paused, letting her words settle in the quiet room. To create your own personal whisper for you, I need to understand you a little. Not your work, necessarily, but you. What brings you peace? What were your fondest memories as a child? What sounds do you find comforting? What colors? What landscapes? Liam looked utterly bewildered, as if she'd asked him to design a building that defied gravity using only clouds. My fondest memories? I don't know. He ran a hand through his dark hair, a rare gesture of uncertainty. I was always building things, Lego, treehouses, forts. And what did that feel like? Alara prompted, her voice like a soft current. The act of building, the imagining, the planning, the bringing it to life. His eyes seemed to lose a bit of their guardedness, drifting to some internal landscape. It felt ordered, satisfying, bringing structure out of chaos, creating something new that had never existed before. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. And the smell of sawdust and fresh-cut grass from my grandfather's yard. Alara made a mental note. Sawdust. Fresh-cut grass. Order. Creation? These were threads. Did your grandfather live in the countryside? A small farm just outside the city, Liam confirmed. He had an old workshop in the barn, filled with tools, the smell of wood and oil. He taught me to whittle, to build birdhouses, said every piece of wood had a story inside it, waiting to be revealed. A story waiting to be revealed, Alara repeated softly, her gaze warm. That's a beautiful way to put it. And when you slept there, at your grandfather's farm, what did you hear? What did you feel? He closed his eyes for a moment, and Alara watched the subtle shift in his features, the lines of tension easing just a fraction. Cracks and pops of the old house settling, the distant hoot of an owl, sometimes the soft whir of my grandfather's old clock on the mantel, and always a sense of deep quiet, like the world outside was asleep too. Deep quiet, Alara murmured, scribbling in her journal. Tell me more about the quiet. Was it empty, or was it full? Liam opened his eyes, a hint of surprise in their depths. Full of potential, I suppose. The promise of morning, the stories in the wood, the quiet hum of life, even when everything was still. He paused. I haven't thought about that place in years. Sometimes the key to finding rest is revisiting those places in our minds where we once felt most at peace, Alara explained. What about colors? What colors do you find comforting? He considered this, a rare contemplative look on his face. Greens, deep forest greens, blues like a clear sky just before dawn, and the warm, earthy tones of wood. And sounds, beyond the owl and the clock. Rain, he said immediately. Soft rain against a window pane, or the crackle of a fire. Not the roaring kind, but a gentle, steady warmth. Alara continued to ask questions, guiding him gently from one memory to another, from abstract preferences to concrete sensations. She learned about his favorite childhood book, a collection of myths and legends, surprisingly. The taste of his grandmother's apple pie, the feeling of smooth stone beneath his palm. He spoke of the satisfaction of a perfectly balanced design, the beauty of a sturdy foundation, the elegance of simplicity. He was a man of structure and logic, yes. But beneath that, Alara sensed a deep appreciation for the natural world, for craftsmanship, for the quiet beauty of things built to last. He had a meticulous mind, but also a hidden wellspring of imagination, long untapped. After nearly an hour, Liam seemed less rigid, his posture slightly more relaxed. He still didn't quite lean back into the armchair, but the invisible barrier around him felt a little less formidable. "So," he said, a hint of skepticism still lingering, "you'll take all of this and make a story?" "Yes," Alara confirmed, her smile gentle. "A story woven just for you. A story that incorporates the quiet full of potential, the scent of sawdust, the deep greens and blues, the gentle rain, the hoot of an owl, and the satisfaction of creation. A narrative that invites your racing mind to slow, to settle, to journey to a place of profound peace. It won't be a dramatic adventure, but a gentle unfolding, a sensory experience designed to..." "And what will it be called?" he asked, a flicker of genuine curiosity in his hazel eyes. "I call all my stories whispers," Alara explained, "because they're intimate, soft, meant to be heard only by you, in the quiet of your own space. This one, your whisper, will be crafted specifically to speak to your soul's need for rest." He considered this, a long, thoughtful silence stretching between them. "And how does it work? Do you just tell it to me?" "I record it," Alara clarified, "in my studio with subtle custom-blended ambient sounds layered beneath my voice. You'll receive a digital file that you can listen to on your phone or any device, preferably with good quality headphones as you prepare for sleep. I recommend listening to it nightly for at least a week, perhaps longer, to allow your mind to fully attune to its rhythm." "A recording," he mused. "That makes a bit more sense. Less fanciful than her telling him a story face to face, perhaps." "I'll need a few days to craft your whisper," Alara continued. "I like to let the elements settle, to find the perfect narrative flow. I'll email you when it's ready. Do you have any other questions?" Liam shook his head slowly. "No, just, I hope it works, Ms. Vance. I really do." The weariness in his voice was palpable then, a raw vulnerability that touched Alara's heart. "I have every confidence it will, Mr. Thorne," she replied, her voice imbued with a quiet certainty. "Just allow yourself to listen, and to simply be." After Liam had left, the chiming of the bell a final, crisp punctuation to their meeting, Alara remained in her armchair, a soft sigh escaping her. He was an intriguing man, a formidable presence with a hidden tenderness, a man of strong foundations who yearned for quiet. The challenge of weaving his whisper felt exciting, a puzzle she was eager to solve with the threads he had unwittingly provided. She picked up her journal, filled with her notes on Liam. Sawdust, rain, owls, old clocks, forest greens, clear blues, the satisfaction of building, the quiet full of potential. A grandfather's workshop. A desire for order and structure, but also a deep, almost unconscious yearning for peace and the gentle unfolding of dreams. Alara closed her eyes, letting her imagination wander. She pictured a sturdy, silent cabin nestled deep within an ancient forest, built with strong, honest wood. Inside, a fire crackled softly in a stone hearth, casting dancing light on shelves filled with half-finished carvings and well-loved tools. Rain began to fall outside, a rhythmic patter against the window pane, and in the distance, the hoot of a wise old owl echoed through the trees. The air would be clean and cool, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. Perhaps the protagonist of Liam's whisper would be a skilled craftsman, patiently working on a project, each stroke of his hand bringing order and beauty from raw material. He wouldn't be rushed, wouldn't be stressed. He would simply be present, immersed in the quiet joy of creation, the world outside fading into a soft, indistinct hum. The sounds would be gentle, repetitive, comforting. The story would be less about plot, and more about atmosphere, sensation, and the profound peace found in mindful presence. Alara spent the next 2 days entirely immersed in Liam's whisper. She researched different types of wood, the specific sounds of various hand tools, the nuanced calls of forest owls. In her studio, she experimented with ambient recordings. The soft crackle of a real wood fire, the gentle drumming of rain on a window, the distant hoot of a great horned owl she'd recorded herself during a camping trip. She layered them carefully, ensuring they blended seamlessly beneath her voice, creating a tapestry of sound that was both subtle and deeply immersive. She wrote and rewrote passages, her pen scratching softly in her journal, late into the night. The narrative began to take shape, becoming a story of a solitary woodworker in his forest sanctuary, crafting a magnificent wooden clock. Each tick and tock of the emerging timepiece would mark not the passage of time, but the deepening of peace. The woodworker would be attuned to the rhythm of the forest, the quiet wisdom of the trees, the slow, satisfying unfolding of creation. On the third evening, as a sliver of moon hung like a silver fingernail in the indigo sky, Alara finally settled into her soundproofed booth, the microphone poised before her. She took a deep breath, letting the carefully curated sounds fill her headphones, the scent of lavender from a small sachet beside her easing her further into the narrative. Then, she began to speak. Her voice a warm, gentle current, carrying the words of Liam's whisper into the quiet air. Welcome, weary traveler, to the heart of the ancient forest, where the air is cool and clean, and the only sounds are those of nature's lullaby. You find yourself in a sturdy, silent cabin, built from deep, honest wood, nestled among trees that have stood for centuries, their branches whispering secrets to the passing breeze. She continued, weaving in the scent of sawdust and pine, the rhythmic tap-tap of a master craftsman shaping wood, the gentle drip of rain on the cabin roof, the distant, comforting hoot of an owl. She spoke of the peace found in focused creation, the satisfaction of a task well done, the quiet joy of being entirely present in the moment. The narrative was simple, repetitive in its soothing cadence, designed to disarm the racing mind, to invite it to rest, to let go of the day's demands. When she finished, her voice a little hoarse, but her heart full, she leaned back, listening to the final lingering sounds of rain and crackling fire fade into silence. She had poured not just words, but empathy and intuition into this whisper. She truly hoped it would bring Liam Thorne the peace he so desperately sought. She carefully edited the recording, adding the final touches, ensuring every transition was smooth, every sound perfectly balanced. Finally, she uploaded the file and drafted an email, attaching the precious audio. Dear Mr. Thorne, she wrote, your whisper is complete. I hope it brings you the profound rest you are seeking. Please remember to listen with an open heart and allow yourself to simply drift. With warmth, Alara Vance. She pressed send, watching the email disappear into the digital ether. Then, she turned off the studio lights, plunging the room into soft darkness, and stepped out into the quiet shop. The moon now shone brighter, casting a silvery glow through the windows. Alara walked to the front door, flipped the closed sign, and locked up, the quiet chime of the bell echoing softly in the stillness. She wondered what Liam would think. Would he find the quiet he sought? Would his racing mind finally slow its relentless pace? And as she walked home, a gentle breeze rustling the autumn leaves around her, Alara found herself wondering, too, about the man himself. The architect of towering structures, now seeking solace in the quiet hum of a crafted story. A subtle warmth bloomed in her chest, a quiet anticipation for the next chapter, not just of his whisper, but of the story that was slowly beginning to unfold between them. The subtle warmth that bloomed in Alara's chest lasted all the way home, a gentle ember glowing against the chill of the evening air. The rustling leaves seemed to whisper his name, Liam. An architect, a builder of magnificent towering structures, now seeking solace in the quiet, intricate craft of storytelling. It was a paradox that intrigued her, a fascinating juxtaposition of worlds. She imagined his hands accustomed to blueprints and steel, now perhaps envisioning the delicate curve of a letter, the texture of a page. Her apartment, a cozy haven above the bookshop, welcomed her with its familiar scent of old paper and brewing tea. As she moved about, preparing a simple meal, her mind replayed their conversation. His earnestness, the slight vulnerability in his eyes when he spoke of his racing mind, the almost desperate hope for quiet. She felt a surprising pull, a desire not just to help him create his story, but to understand the man behind the project. To see if the quiet he sought could truly be found, and if, perhaps, she could be a small part of guiding him there. The next morning the bell above the bookshop door chimed, a sound that usually signified a customer, but today Alara knew it was different. She looked up from dusting a shelf of worn classics to see Liam standing there, a leather-bound notebook clutched in his hand, a slight apprehension in his posture. He wasn't dressed in the sharp suit from yesterday, but in a simple, well-fitting sweater and dark trousers, making him seem a little less formidable, a little more approachable. "Good morning, Alara," he said, his voice a touch softer than before. "I hope I'm not too early." "Not at all, Liam. I'm always here," she replied, a genuine smile curving her lips. "Come on through. The workshop is ready whenever you are." He followed her, his gaze sweeping over the shelves, lingering on a display of antique maps before settling on the sunlit workshop. The scent of wood, paper, and leather was stronger here, a comforting embrace. Her workbench, usually a neat array of tools and materials, had been cleared to accommodate their collaboration. 2 comfortable chairs faced each other across a sturdy oak table. "It's peaceful," Liam murmured, running a hand over the smooth surface of the table. "A world away from my usual office." Alara poured them both mugs of herbal tea, the steam curling invitingly in the cool morning air. "That's the idea. So, where shall we begin with your whisper?" He opened his notebook, revealing pages filled with neat, precise handwriting, interspersed with small, almost architectural sketches. "I have tried to capture some thoughts. It's for my niece, Lily. She's 7. Lately, she's been a bit overwhelmed by things. School, friends, just the general noise of the world. I want to give her a story that helps her find her own quiet place, a gentle adventure." Alara nodded, listening intently. "A journey of discovery, perhaps? Not outwards, but inwards." "Exactly," he said, meeting her gaze, a spark of enthusiasm replacing the apprehension. "I envision a character, maybe a small, curious creature, who feels a bit lost in a bustling world, and through a series of gentle encounters, perhaps with wise old trees or quiet streams, learns to listen to its own inner voice, its own whisper." He began to describe the creature, a soft-furred, wide-eyed being named Pip, who lived in a village filled with boisterous, busy creatures. Alara found herself drawn into his nascent world, her imagination already conjuring images. She suggested details, asked questions that helped him flesh out Pip's personality, the challenges it faced, and the gentle lessons it might learn. Their first few sessions were a slow, deliberate dance of ideas. Liam, accustomed to the structured logic of engineering, sometimes struggled with the fluid, intuitive nature of storytelling. He would get bogged down in details, trying to map out every plot point with architectural precision. Alara, with her innate understanding of narrative flow and emotional resonance, would gently guide him, reminding him that sometimes the magic lay in the unsaid, the felt. "Think of it like a melody, Liam," she explained one afternoon, as he frowned over a particularly dense paragraph. "You don't need to describe every single note. Sometimes the space between the notes, the silence, is just as important. It allows the listener, or in this case the reader, to breathe, to feel." He looked up, a thoughtful expression on his face. "A melody? I hadn't thought of it that way. In architecture, every line, every beam, has a purpose, a defined role." "And so it does here," Alara countered softly. "But the purpose of a story is often to evoke, to connect emotionally, not just to inform structurally." Slowly, painstakingly, Liam began to loosen his grip on rigid structure. He started to trust Alara's intuition, to embrace the softer, more imaginative aspects of their collaboration. He would arrive each morning with new ideas, sometimes scribbled on napkins from his breakfast, a testament to how the story was beginning to occupy his thoughts beyond their dedicated hours. Alara, in turn, found herself fascinated by his methodical approach. He would research the types of trees Pip might encounter, the habits of forest creatures, even the psychological impact of different colors in illustrations. His precision, once a potential stumbling block, now added a unique, grounded texture to their fantastical tale. Lunch became a shared affair. Sometimes, Alara would make simple sandwiches and brew a fresh pot of coffee. Other times, Liam would surprise her with pastries from a small bakery he had discovered, or bring in gourmet sandwiches from a deli downtown. These were moments when their conversation drifted away from Pip and his journey, venturing into their own lives. He learned about her love for the quiet rhythm of the bookshop, her passion for the tactile beauty of handcrafted books, her dream of preserving stories in their most enduring forms. She learned about his family, his demanding career, the immense pressure he often felt, and the profound satisfaction of seeing a building rise from concept to reality. He spoke of his parents who had instilled in him a strong work ethic, and of his sister, Lily's mother, who was a free spirit, an artist. She always told me I needed to lighten up, he confessed one crisp autumn afternoon, a rare, genuine laugh escaping him. Said I took life too seriously. Maybe she was right. Elara smiled, a gentle warmth spreading through her. Perhaps you just needed the right kind of light. He looked at her then, his gaze lingering, and for a moment, the air between them felt charged, a silent acknowledgement of the growing intimacy in their shared space. As the weeks turned into a month, the whisper began to take shape. Pip, the small, anxious creature, was learning to pause, to listen to the rustling leaves, the bubbling brook, the gentle beat of its own heart. The story was becoming a balm, not just for the imaginary Lily, but for Liam himself. Elara noticed the subtle changes in him. The furrow in his brow was less pronounced. He smiled more easily, his shoulders seemed less hunched with responsibility. His movements, initially stiff with unspoken tension, had become more relaxed, more fluid. He even started humming sometimes while poring over a new draft, a quiet, tuneless melody that filled the workshop with a comforting presence. One blustery afternoon, a sudden downpour trapped them inside. The rain lashed against the windows, creating a cozy cocoon in the workshop. Liam had just finished reading a particularly poignant chapter where Pip, after a long journey, finally finds a quiet glade and listens to its own inner whisper, a soft, encouraging sound. "It's good, Elara," he said, his voice husky with emotion. "It feels right." Elara saw the shine in his eyes, a vulnerability he rarely displayed. "It is, Liam. It truly is. You've poured so much of yourself into this." He nodded, looking out at the rain-streaked window. "I never realized how much I needed to write this story, how much Jane needed to hear Pip's whisper." He turned back to her, a sincerity in his gaze that made her heart flutter. "Thank you for helping me find it." "It was always within you," she replied softly, her own voice a little breathless. "I just helped you clear away some of the noise." That evening, as they were packing up, Liam paused by her workbench, picking up a half-finished leather binding. "This is beautiful, Elara. The detail, the craftsmanship, it's incredible." "It's a labor of love," she explained, her fingers tracing the intricate pattern. "Each book, each binding, has its own story, long before the pages are even filled." "So, for Pip's story," he said, setting down the binding gently, "what kind of cover do you envision? What kind of paper? I want it to be perfect." This was Elara's domain, her true artistry. She began to describe the possibilities. A soft, muted green leather, like forest moss, with delicate blind tooling depicting a single unfurling fern. Handmade paper, perhaps with subtle flecks of dried leaves, giving it an organic texture. A simple, elegant font that felt as gentle as a whisper. Liam listened, captivated. He asked about the different types of stitches, the durability of various materials, the archival qualities of the paper. He approached it with the same meticulous detail he would a structural drawing, yet with a new, artistic appreciation that warmed Elara's heart. "It will be a treasure," he concluded, a smile playing on his lips. "A true heirloom." As their collaboration continued, a comfortable routine settled between them. Mornings began with tea and discussion, flowing into bursts of creative energy, often punctuated by laughter. Elara found herself looking forward to his arrival each day, the way his presence filled the workshop, the subtle scent of his cologne mingling with the aroma of paper and ink. She enjoyed watching him work, the way his brow furrowed in concentration, the sudden spark in his eyes when a new idea clicked. Liam, too, seemed to find a rhythm. He started staying a little longer after their sessions, browsing the bookshop, sometimes picking up a novel Elara had recommended. He even offered to help her with small tasks, like reorganizing a particularly unruly shelf or carrying heavy boxes of new inventory. Their conversations became less about the story and more about life, shared experiences, dreams. One crisp Saturday morning, the air still holding the scent of damp earth and wood smoke, Liam suggested a change of scenery. Pip's journey takes him through a quiet forest, learning from the trees and the river. I thought perhaps we could experience a little of that ourselves, get some inspiration. Ilara's heart gave a little leap. That sounds wonderful, Liam. They drove to a nature reserve just outside the city, a sprawling expanse of ancient trees, winding paths, and a meandering river. The autumn colors were in full glory, a tapestry of golds, fiery reds, and deep russets. The air was crisp and clean, carrying the earthy fragrance of fallen leaves. As they walked, the silence between them was not awkward, but companionable. They pointed out interesting trees, observed a squirrel burying nuts, listened to the distant call of a bird. Liam, usually so focused, seemed utterly at ease, his gaze softened by the natural beauty around them. "This is exactly what Pip would see," Ilara murmured, picking up a perfectly formed maple leaf. "The textures, the sounds, it's all here." "And the quiet," Liam added, taking a deep, fortifying breath. "The true quiet, not just the absence of noise, but the presence of peace." He turned to her, his eyes reflecting the soft autumn light. "I haven't felt this untroubled in years, Ilara. It's like the world has slowed down just for a moment." She met his gaze, a profound sense of connection blooming between them. Sometimes all we need is to remember how to listen to the world around us, and to ourselves. They found a moss-covered log by the river, and sat for a while, just watching the water flow. Liam pulled out his small notebook, not to write, but to sketch. He drew a gnarled old oak, its branches reaching like ancient arms, and then a small, soft-furred creature peeking from behind its trunk, Pip. "You've captured him perfectly," Ilara whispered, admiring the sketch. He smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile that reached his eyes. "He's become quite real to me, thanks to you." He turned the page and sketched another image, this time of a small book, intricately bound, with a single fern embossed on its cover. And then, subtly, almost subliminally, he sketched a pair of hands, gentle and knowing, holding it. Ilara recognized her own hands in the delicate lines. A blush crept up her neck, but she didn't look away. The unspoken sentiment hung in the air, as clear and refreshing as the autumn breeze. As the afternoon drew to a close, they returned to the city, the silence in the car filled with a new kind of awareness. Their shared journey through the forest had cemented something, deepening the roots of their connection. Back in the workshop, The Whisper was nearing completion. The manuscript was almost finalized. The illustrations, commissioned from a talented local artist, Ilara knew, were coming together beautifully. Now, it was time for Ilara to work her magic on the physical book. Liam watched her, mesmerized, as she meticulously selected the finest leathers, measured and cut the paper, and prepared her tools. He saw the precision in her movements, the gentle care with which she handled each material. It was a different kind of architecture, a miniature one, but no less intricate or meaningful. He found himself lingering after their daily sessions, no longer feeling the urgency to return to his high-rise office. He would sit on one of the stools, sipping a cup of tea, and simply observe her. He saw the passion in her eyes, the dedication in her nimble fingers as she worked, transforming raw materials into something beautiful and enduring. One evening, as she was meticulously stitching the spine of Pip's book, the workshop quiet save for the soft rustle of paper and the rhythmic click of her needle, Liam spoke, his voice low and contemplative. "You know, Ilara," he began, "I came here seeking quiet. I thought it was something I needed to find joy from everything. But I'm realizing it's not just about the absence of noise. It's about finding a different kind of presence, a presence that brings peace." Ilara paused her work, looking up at him, her heart thrumming. He met her gaze, his expression earnest, vulnerable. "And being here with you working on this story, it's given me that. More than I ever thought possible." He gestured around the workshop, at the books, the tools, the cozy space. "This place, your craft, you've helped me find my own whisper, Ilara, my own quiet strength." Her cheeks flushed, a warmth spreading through her that had nothing to do with the workshop's heater. The air thickened with unspoken emotion, a delicate tension that was both thrilling and terrifying. She felt a profound connection to this man, a gentle understanding that had blossomed from shared purpose into something deeper, something she hadn't dared to name. "Liam," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "that means a lot to me. More than you know." He took a step closer, his eyes searching hers. "Elara, He paused, as if gathering his thoughts, or perhaps the courage to speak them. "I don't think I'm ready for this project to end, for our collaboration to be over." A wave of relief washed over her, mingled with a quiet joy. She hadn't realized how much she dreaded the completion of the book, the inevitable parting. "It doesn't have to be," she said, her voice soft but steady. "There are always more stories, Liam." She smiled, a gentle, hopeful smile. "And perhaps, more whispers to find." He returned her smile, a profound sense of peace settling over his features. The unspoken question hung between them, not about another book, but about another chapter of their own unfolding story. The autumn light, now softer, golden, streamed through the workshop window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, like tiny, hopeful whispers, promising a future as rich and beautiful as the handcrafted tale they had created together. The binding of Pip's story was almost complete, but the binding of their own quiet, heartfelt narrative was only just beginning to take shape. The binding of Pip's story was almost complete, but the binding of their own quiet, heartfelt narrative was only just beginning to take shape. The unspoken question, warm and delicate as a fresh-baked pastry, lingered in the air between Clara and Elias. It wasn't a question that needed words. Not yet, anyway. It was in the way Elias's gaze softened as he looked at her, in the gentle curve of Clara's smile as she met his eyes. It was in the shared breath they seemed to take, the comfortable silence that had grown so quickly between them, like ivy embracing an ancient wall. Elias cleared his throat, a soft, almost imperceptible sound, and gestured back to the workbench. "The end papers," he murmured, his voice a low rumble, "air next, and then, the final pressing." Clara nodded, her heart doing a little flutter, like a trapped butterfly against her ribs. The magic of their shared craft, the meticulous dance of paper and thread and glue, offered a welcome anchor to the swirling emotions within her. She picked up a sheet of marbled paper, swirled with hues of deep forest green and creamy ivory, chosen specifically to evoke the gentle wilderness of Pip's adventures. "They'll be perfect," she said, her voice a little breathier than usual. They fell into a comfortable rhythm, the unspoken question, now a gentle hum beneath the surface of their focused work. Elias carefully trimmed the end papers, his hands moving with an almost surgical precision, each cut clean and true. Clara watched, fascinated, as he applied a thin, even layer of paste, the scent of it faintly sweet, like almonds. Then, with practiced ease, he aligned the marbled paper with the cover boards, smoothing out any air bubbles with a bone folder. The silence was punctuated only by the soft scrape of the tool, the rustle of paper, and the rhythmic tick-tock of an old grandfather clock in the corner of the workshop. As the last end paper was secured, Elias stepped back, a sigh of quiet satisfaction escaping his lip. He held the book up, its spine now fully formed, its covers adorned with the elegant marbling. Clara's illustrations, peeking from within, seemed to glow with a new life, framed by Elias's exquisite craftsmanship. The cover, a rich forest green cloth, felt smooth and inviting beneath her fingertips. "It's magnificent, Elias," Clara breathed, reaching out to gently touch the spine. Her fingers brushed against his, and a jolt, warm and electric, passed between them. They both pulled back slightly, a blush creeping up Clara's cheeks, a faint flush darkening Elias's strong jawline. He cleared his throat again, a nervous habit she was beginning to find endearing. "It's your work, Clara, that truly makes it sing. My part is merely to give it a lasting voice." "And what a voice it is," she countered, looking up at him, her eyes shining. "It feels like a treasure, a real, tangible treasure." He smiled, a slow, genuine smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes and softened the usually serious line of his mouth. It was a smile that reached his eyes, warm and inviting, and it made something inside Clara settle, a peaceful contentment blooming in her chest. "Now," Elias said, his voice a little lighter, "for the final press, to truly set the binding, to make it strong and true." He led her to a large, ancient-looking press, its iron jaws gleaming. With careful movements, he placed Pip's story between the wooden boards, securing it firmly. The turning of the handle was a slow, deliberate process, the creak of the mechanism a testament to its age and strength. As the book settled into its final slumber, waiting for the binding to cure, Elias turned to Clara. The autumn light, now a deeper gold, cast long shadows across the workshop. "It's done," he said, a note of quiet triumph in his voice. "For now, at least. It will stay in the press overnight." Clara felt a pang of something akin to sadness. The project that had brought them together was complete. What now? The unspoken question returned, stronger this time, filling the space between them. Elias seemed to sense her thoughts. He looked out the window, then back at her. "It's getting late," he began, then hesitated. "I was going to make some tea. And perhaps we could celebrate the completion of such a beautiful book. Unless you have other plans?" Clara's heart gave another happy flutter. "No plans at all," she said, perhaps a little too eagerly. "Tia sounds wonderful." "Excellent." Elias's smile widened, and he gestured towards a small, cozy nook in the corner of the workshop, where an old, worn armchair sat beside a low table. A kettle was already on a small electric hob, a gentle wisp of steam rising from its spout. The air was filled with the subtle aroma of warm wood, old paper, and now, the faint promise of brewing Earl Grey. They settled into the nook, Elias pouring the tea into mismatched ceramic mugs, Clara admiring the intricate patterns on the armchair's upholstery. The quiet hum of the workshop, now devoid of their active work, felt different, more intimate. "It truly is your finest work yet, Elias," Clara said, cradling her warm mug. "You've brought my little Pip to life in a way I hadn't even imagined." Elias took a sip of his tea, his eyes on the book, now hidden within the press. "And your illustrations, Clara, they have a way of reaching straight into the heart. They don't just tell a story, they eye feeling it." He paused, then looked at her directly. "You have a remarkable gift." A warm blush spread across Clara's cheeks. She wasn't used to such earnest praise, especially not from someone whose opinion she valued so highly. "Thank you," she mumbled, looking down at her tea. "It means a lot, coming from you." The conversation flowed gently then, no longer confined to the technicalities of bookbinding. They spoke of the changing seasons, of the crispness in the air, the fiery colors of the leaves outside. Elias mentioned a quaint little antique shop he knew, tucked away in a neighboring village, that sometimes had rare old storybooks. Clara spoke of her dream to illustrate a truly epic tale, something with dragons and lost kingdoms, a stark contrast to the gentle adventures of Pip. "I've always been drawn to the stories within stories," Elias mused, stirring his tea. "The way a book's history can be read in its worn edges, the faint scent of a forgotten reader's perfume on a page." He looked thoughtful. "Every book has a journey, long before it reaches its final reader." "Like people," Clara said softly, meeting his gaze. "We all have our journeys, our worn edges, our faint sense of past experiences." Elias's eyes held hers, a deep understanding passing between them. The unspoken question had found a new depth, a new layer of meaning. It wasn't just about why was next, but to who they were, and how their individual journeys might now intertwine. The light outside the window began to fade, casting the workshop in a soft, ethereal glow. Elias stood up, stretching his long frame. "I suppose," he said, a hint of reluctance in his voice, "it's time I thought about dinner. And you, Clara?" Clara realized how late it was, and how comfortable she felt. The thought of leaving, of returning to her quiet cottage, suddenly felt like a wrench. I should probably head home," she said, though her heart wished for another hour, another shared moment. Elias walked her to the workshop door, the scent of leather and old paper clinging faintly to his clothes. As he opened the door, a gust of cool autumn air swept in, carrying the earthy smell of fallen leaves. "Clara," he said, just as she was about to step out. She turned. Would you perhaps consider joining me for dinner? It's nothing fancy, just a simple meal at my place, to truly celebrate Pip, and..." He seemed a little nervous, his gaze shifting slightly, then returning to meet hers. A wide, genuine smile bloomed on Clara's face. The wrench in her heart eased, replaced by a joyful lightness. "I would love that, Elias. Very much." His relief was palpable. He smiled, a truly radiant smile this time. "Wonderful. Just give me half an hour. I'll tidy up a bit and put something on the stove. My cottage is just around the corner past the old mill." "I know it," Clara said, remembering the charming ivy-clad stone cottage she'd often admired on her walks. "I'll be there." As she walked home, the evening air crisp and invigorating, Clara felt a lightness in her step she hadn't felt in years. The thought of Elias, of his quiet strength, his gentle hands, his genuine smile, filled her with a warmth that chased away the autumn chill. She quickly changed into a fresh dress, something simple but cheerful, and ran a brush through her hair, a nervous excitement fluttering in her stomach. When she arrived at Elias's cottage, a soft light spilled from its windows, casting a welcoming glow on the path. The faint aroma of something delicious, herbs and roasted vegetables, perhaps, wafted from the open kitchen window. She knocked softly, her heart thrumming. Elias opened the door, a comfortable apron tied around his waist, his sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. He looked even more relaxed than he did in the workshop, his hair a little disheveled, a hint of flour on his cheek. "Clara, come in, come in." His cottage was a reflection of his workshop, warm, inviting, filled with character. Bookshelves lined every wall, overflowing with ancient tomes and modern novels alike. A crackling fire danced in the hearth, casting flickering shadows on the ceiling. There was a comfortable, lived-in feel to the place, a sense of quiet contentment that Clara immediately responded to. "It's beautiful, Elias," she said, her voice soft with admiration. "Thank you. It's home." He gestured towards a small round dining table, already set with 2 places, simple ceramic plates, and a vase holding a sprig of dried lavender. "I hope you don't mind a simple lentil stew. It's an old family recipe." "It smells absolutely wonderful," Clara assured him, her stomach rumbling in agreement. They sat down, and Elias served the stew, a rich, fragrant dish that warmed Clara from the inside out. The conversation flowed effortlessly, moving from books to art, from their childhood memories to their quiet dreams. Clara found herself sharing stories she hadn't told anyone in years, about her first clumsy attempts at drawing, the solace she found in creating worlds on paper, the small triumphs and occasional frustrations of being an illustrator. Elias, in turn, spoke of his grandfather, a bookbinder before him, who had taught him the reverence for stories and the craft of preserving them. He spoke of his favorite authors, his joy in finding a rare first edition, the quiet satisfaction of repairing a beloved book. His passion was evident in every word, and Clara found herself utterly captivated. "I've always felt a connection to the past through books," Elias explained, leaning back slightly, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Each page, each cover, holds a whisper of hands that held it before, eyes that read its words. It's a way of touching history, of feeling the continuity of human experience." Clara nodded, a profound sense of understanding washing over her. "And I feel a connection to the future through my art," she said, her voice soft. "Creating characters, giving them adventures, hoping they'll spark imagination in children for generations to come. It's a way of planting seeds for what's next." Their eyes met across the table, and in that shared glance, Clara felt a powerful sense of alignment. They were different, yet so fundamentally similar in their reverence for stories, for creation, for the quiet magic that binds past, present, and future. After dinner, Elias brewed more tea, and they moved to the comfortable armchairs by the fire. The flames cast a warm, flickering glow on their faces, making the world outside feel distant and irrelevant. Clara felt a profound sense of ease, a feeling of being exactly where she was meant to be. Elias began to tell her a story, not from a book, but from his own life, a whimsical tale of discovering a hidden compartment in an antique desk he was restoring, and finding a faded century-old love letter tucked inside. He described the elegant cursive, the tender words, the poignant sense of a love lost to time but preserved in ink. Clara listened, enraptured, imagining the scene, the lovers, the world of 100 years ago. "Did you ever find out what happened to them?" she asked, leaning forward, her eyes wide. Elias shook his head, a gentle smile playing on his lips. "No, Some stories, I think, are meant to remain mysteries. Their beauty is in their unspoken continuation, in the imagination they spark. He looked at her, his smile softening. Like ours. The simple words, spoken so casually, yet with such profound meaning, sent a jolt through Clara. Like ours. Their story, still unfolding, still largely unwritten. The unspoken question had found its answer, not in a declaration, but in a shared glance, a quiet understanding, a comfortable silence by a crackling fire. As the evening drew to a close, a gentle drowsiness began to settle over Clara. She stifled a yawn, feeling utterly content. Elias walked her to the door, the chill of the night air a stark contrast to the warmth of his cottage. Thank you, Elias, Clara said, looking up at him. For Pip, for dinner, for everything. The pleasure was all mine, Clara, he replied, his voice a low, comforting murmur. He hesitated, then reached out, his hand gently brushing her arm. I hope we can do this again soon. I hope so too, she whispered, her heart full. As she walked home under a sky dusted with stars, Clara felt a new sense of purpose, a gentle excitement bubbling beneath the surface. The images of Elias's workshop, his cozy cottage, his warm smile, danced in her mind. She thought of the stories he told, the care he put into his craft, the quiet depth of his soul. Back in her own cottage, the familiar scent of paint and paper, she found herself unable to sleep. Her mind buzzed with ideas, not just for Pip's next adventure, but for something entirely new. A story about craftsmanship, about the hidden magic in old objects, about the gentle hands that bring beauty and meaning to the world. A story that felt distinctly Julius. She grabbed her sketchbook, the charcoal pencil feeling alive in her fingers. She began to draw, hands, strong and calloused, carefully turning a page, the intricate patterns of marbled paper, the warm glow of a lamp illuminating a workbench. And then, a small, curious creature, a little badger perhaps, peeking out from behind a stack of books, watching the quiet magic unfold. The idea for a new book, a new collaboration, began to bloom in her mind, vibrant and fresh. It wasn't just about crafting a story. It was about crafting a reason to return to Elias's workshop, to his quiet presence, to the unspoken questions that now felt like gentle promises. She knew, with a certainty that warmed her to her core, that she wanted to work with him again. To share more silences, more stories, more cups of tea. To see where their own quiet, heartfelt narrative would lead them next. The next morning, the first rays of sunlight streaming through her window, Clara knew what she had to do. She gathered her sketches, her heart thrumming with anticipation, and made her way back to Elias's workshop. She found him already at work, carefully removing Pip's story from the press. The book now felt solid, complete, its binding perfectly set. He looked up as she entered, his eyes lighting up. Clara, good morning, Pip is ready. He held the finished book out to her, a masterpiece of art and craft. Clara took it, her fingers tracing the smooth cover, the elegant spine. It's even more beautiful than I imagined, Elias, she said, her voice filled with genuine admiration. But then, she held out her sketchbook. And I had an idea. For something new. Elias took the sketchbook, his brow furrowing slightly in curiosity. He flipped through the pages, his expression softening as he saw her charcoal sketches, the subtle nods to his world, his craft. He paused on the image of the little badger peeking from behind the books, a gentle smile spreading across his face. It's a story about a little creature who discovers the magic in everyday objects, in the hands that shape them, in the stories they hold, Clara explained, her voice gaining enthusiasm. And I thought you might be interested in binding this one too, if you'd like. Elias looked up from the sketches, his eyes meeting hers, full of a warmth that made Clara's breath catch. The unspoken question was now a hopeful invitation, an open door to a future they could build together, one page, one chapter at a time. He closed the sketchbook gently, holding it in his large, capable hands. Clara, he said, his voice soft but firm, I would be honored. His gaze held hers, a silent promise passing between them. More than honored. And in that moment, as the autumn light spilled into the workshop, illuminating the dust motes dancing like tiny, hopeful whispers, Clara knew that their story, the quiet, heartfelt narrative that had begun to take shape, was indeed only just beginning. And she couldn't wait to see what beautiful chapters lay ahead. The days that followed unfurled like a carefully tended garden, each one bringing new growth, new understanding. Clara found herself looking forward to her visits to Liam's workshop with an eagerness that surprised her. It wasn't just the project, though the bird feeder was quickly taking shape under their combined efforts, evolving from a simple sketch into something truly special. It was the quiet rhythm they fell into, the comfortable silence punctuated by the rasp of sandpaper, the soft tap of a hammer, the low hum of Liam's woodworking tools. He was patient, explaining the nuances of different wood types, the best way to achieve a smooth finish, the importance of precise measurements. Clara, with her artist's eye, brought ideas for delicate carvings, a particular shape for the roof, the perfect perch for tiny feet. They were a study in delightful contrast, his methodical precision balanced by her intuitive creativity. He taught her to use the scroll saw, guiding her hands with a gentle touch that sent a pleasant shiver down her arm, making her focus less on the wood and more on the warmth radiating from his skin. She, in turn, showed him how a simple linseed oil finish could bring out the hidden patterns in the grain, revealing a beauty he'd previously overlooked in his pursuit of functionality. Their conversations began tentatively, about wood, about tools, about the local bird species they hoped to attract. Soon they branched out. Clara found herself sharing anecdotes about her childhood, her dreams of opening a small artisan shop, the quiet satisfaction she found in creating with her hands. Liam, initially more reserved, slowly began to open up too. He spoke of growing up on his family's farm, of his love for the outdoors, of the deep satisfaction he found in making things that lasted. There was a quiet strength about him, an integrity that Clara found immensely appealing. He rarely spoke of himself with grandiosity, preferring instead to let his actions speak volumes. One crisp afternoon, as the scent of sawdust mingled with the faint aroma of cinnamon from the tea Clara had brewed, Liam paused, holding up a small, intricately carved wooden bird. "This detail," he said, his brow furrowed in concentration. "It's beautiful, Clara. You have a real gift." Clara blushed, her heart doing a little flutter kick. "It's just a small embellishment," she demurred, though pride swelled within her. "I thought it would make it unique." He set the bird back down carefully. "It does, like everything you touch, I think." His gaze lingered on her, warm and appraising, and Clara felt a blush creep higher on her cheeks. "You bring out the beauty in things, Clara." His words settled over her like a comforting blanket, chasing away a lingering chill she hadn't realized she carried. For so long, she had poured her heart into her art, often feeling unseen, unheard. To have someone like Liam, so grounded and genuine, acknowledge her contribution, her very essence, was a balm to her soul. As the weeks turned into a soft, golden autumn, the bird feeder neared completion. It was more than just a feeder. It was a miniature architectural marvel, a testament to shared passion. The roof was perfectly pitched, the wood smooth and sealed against the elements. The little carved birds Clara had added seemed ready to take flight. They had worked late into the evening sometimes, the workshop bathed in the warm glow of a single lamp, the world outside fading into a soft hum. Dinner often consisted of whatever Clara had brought: hearty stews, fresh baked bread, apple pie, eaten perched on overturned buckets, their knees almost touching, sharing easy laughter and comfortable silences. One evening, as they were applying the final coat of sealant, Liam's hand brushed hers. The touch was electric, sending a jolt through her that made her drop her brush. He quickly picked it up, his fingers briefly closing over hers as he handed it back. Their eyes met, and in that shared glance, something shifted. The air thickened, charged with unspoken feelings. "It's finished," Clara whispered, her voice a little breathy. Liam nodded, his gaze still on her. "It is." He cleared his throat. "More beautiful than I imagined." "It wouldn't be without you," she said genuinely. "I had the idea, but you brought it to life. Your skill, your patience." She trailed off, searching for the right words. "You just make things better, Liam." He smiled, a slow, gentle curve of his lips that made her heart pound. "I think we make things better together, Clara." He paused, then took a step closer, The scent of wood smoke and cedar, uniquely him, enveloped her. Not just bird feeders. Her breath hitched. She could feel the warmth radiating from him, the unspoken question in his eyes. This was it, the precipice they had been teetering on, the moment when the quiet whispers of their hearts demanded to be heard. "Clara," he began, his voice a low rumble, I've never met anyone like you." He reached out, his large hand gently cupping her cheek. His thumb stroked softly, sending shivers through her. "You bring light into every corner, even dusty old workshops." Clara leaned into his touch, her eyes fluttering closed for a moment. "And you, Liam," she murmured, opening her eyes to meet his intense gaze. "You make me feel safe and seen, and like anything is possible." His eyes darkened, full of tenderness, and a yearning that mirrored her own. "Is it possible, Clara," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, "that this is more than just a project? That what we've built here together goes deeper than wood and glue?" Her answer was a soft, affirmative hum, a nod of her head. She didn't need words. Her heart was singing. Liam's smile widened, a radiant, joyful expression that transformed his rugged features. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away, but Clara stood her ground, her gaze locked with his, her own heart soaring. His lips, soft and warm, met hers in a gentle, tentative kiss. It was everything she had imagined and more, a kiss full of unspoken promises, shared dreams, and the quiet comfort of two souls finally finding their way home to each other. It tasted of sawdust and cinnamon, of autumn evenings and new beginnings. When they finally broke apart, breathless and smiling, the world outside the workshop seemed to glow with a newfound brilliance. The autumn light, now tinged with twilights, soft blues and purples, cast long shadows, but their faces were illuminated by internal light, a shared happiness. "So?" Clara said, her voice a little shaky. Liam chuckled, his arm wrapping around her waist, pulling her closer until she was tucked against his side. "Well, first, we find it the perfect spot. And then," he leaned down, pressing a soft kiss to her temple, "we make another one. Maybe a smaller one for your window." He paused, then added, "And maybe we build a life together, Clara, one beautiful chapter at a time." Clara looked up at him, her heart overflowing. "I would like that very much, Liam." The bird feeder found its home in Clara's garden, hanging from the sturdy branch of an ancient oak tree, a silent sentinel to their burgeoning love. Soon, chickadees and finches, robins and cardinals, discovered its bounty, their cheerful chirps adding a new symphony to the quiet mornings. Each time Clara saw them, she thought of Liam, of their shared creation, and the love that had blossomed amidst the wood shavings and the scent of pine. Their story, it turned out, was indeed only just beginning. It unfolded not with grand gestures, but with quiet moments. Shared cups of coffee on Clara's porch, long walks through the changing woods, evenings spent in Liam's workshop, sometimes working on a new project, sometimes just talking, his arm around her as the fire crackled in the hearth. They learned each other's rhythms, celebrated each other's small victories, and comforted each other through fleeting worries. The little artisan shop Clara had dreamed of eventually came to fruition, a cozy haven filled with her delicate creations and, increasingly, Liam's beautifully crafted wooden pieces. They worked side by side, a silent understanding passing between them, their hands creating beauty, not just for others, but for the life they were building together. And as the seasons turned, from the vibrant greens of spring to the soft blankets of winter snow, Clara knew, with a comforting certainty that settled deep in her soul, that she had found more than just a collaborator, more than just a lover. She had found her home, in the strong, capable hands of a man who saw her, truly saw her, and loved her, just as she was. And in his quiet, steadfast heart, she knew their love would continue to grow, as naturally and beautifully as the birds returning to their feeder, season after season, forever. And she couldn't wait for all the beautiful chapters still to come.